Hello everyone, welcome back again to the NPTEL online certification course on research methodology for planning and architectural studies. In my last lecture, I have mentioned about the qualitative research approach, and also I discussed about its various application. Depending on the type of research, the type of objective that you want to achieve through your research process or research design, so you will either pick the quantitative or qualitative, or even you can go with the mixed method. So in our past few lectures, we have seen different case studies on quantitative research approach. The researcher who had applied those kind of quantitative techniques, or applied certain approaches to achieve their goals, and also they published those study in some of the reputed journals. Like that, now for next few lectures, including today, we'll be talking about different case study where the researchers, they have applied the qualitative methods, or you can say that they adopted some qualitative approach to achieve the study goals. Now, without any further delay, let us start today's lecture number 46, Qualitative Research Case Study 1. What we will learn from this lecture, definitely we will see a particular case study where the researchers, they applied some qualitative methods, or they adopted some qualitative approach to make that particular study happen. We'll also summarize end of this lecture that what are the takeaways from this particular case study. Here is the case study 1, which is titled Factors Influencing Choice Riders for Using Park and Ride Facilities, a case study of Delhi. So in this case, definitely the park and ride, we have seen another paper earlier while we were discussing about the quantitative research approach. This is another one. We'll get to know about some qualitative approach as well. Now, why it is qualitative approach? So let us understand by the title what could be the content of this paper. So this paper focuses on identifying the factors which influence the choice riders. So now the question is, who are the choice riders? I'll come to that. For using park and ride facility, and then this study has been done taking the reference of Delhi. Now, whenever we go for some sort of perception based survey, we ask people that, okay, what are the factors do you think it's important, and what are the factors like you are satisfied with certain services. So these are basically a qualitative approach. Here we are making a judgment on the importance or the satisfaction of any services or facilities based on perception, based on quality, where we measure the quality like in terms of, say, Likert scale, or maybe in some sort of, you can say, the importance rating scale. We have discussed in detail various type of scale that can be used to measure the people's perception. Now, why it is categorized under qualitative approach, that is very important to understand, because with this information, with this rating, definitely we will do some statistical analysis. There will be some calculation, but essentially that will not make it like a quantitative method. So the approach here is based on perception. So for that reason, it is like some sort of qualitative research approach that we apply. So this paper is authored by Aditya, Manish Pitle, Professor Manoranjan Parida, and myself. So this paper was published in Multimodal Transportation, is a Elsevier publication, and again, for your easy access to this paper, again it is an open access paper. Without any subscription, you can also download it. So I have provided the QR code to access this particular paper. Now let us understand a new terminology called choice riders. What exactly it is? Now whenever we take survey of user people towards any kind of mode choice, travel mode choice. So we can categorize the user as like captive users and choice riders. So captive riders or captive users are those who don't have any other option than to opt for that particular mode of concern. Say for example, if my interest is to do a survey that people that who are using metro or using a public transport. So the people who do not have any other mode of transport and only like its only available mode is the public transport, so in those cases they are the captive riders, and they are the people normally they stick with that kind of mode unless otherwise there is a alternative or there is some sort of improvement in the affordability and people can shift from public transport to the private transport. But the other category, that is the choice riders, so these are the people where they do have their personal vehicle, they have the alternative to the public transport, but by choice they are using it. So definitely the people who are having some sort of vehicle ownership, it may be two wheeler, it may be car, four wheeler, etc., but then also they may choose public transport because of certain sort of improvement in the factors. So in those cases they are the choice riders. Now the question is that why we are so much interested to know their perception, because by definition they have alternative. So unless otherwise we give attractive public transport, definitely they will not come to the public transport and they will not use it, and instead of that they will be using their own personalized vehicle or private vehicles. So for that it is very important, along with the captive riders we have to make the public transport system attractive even to the choice riders. So that is all about. And now if you just recollect our discussion on park and ride, so this is another facility where it will ensure the first mile connectivity or the last mile connectivity, where people are using their own vehicle up to the transit station. It may be a bus rapid transit station, it can be a metro station, it can be a rail station, as and when it is applicable, and then remaining of the journey will be made by the public transport. So there are numerous advantages of park and ride that we have already discussed. I will not repeat here again. So if I just try to mention about the background of this particular study, so here it is like many public transportation system fails to attract the desired ridership due to lack of alternatives to the access to the metro station, quality of service of the transit, many a times it is getting delayed, within the system you don't have comfortable sitting place, there are issues with the safety, comfort, etc. Safety, security, comfort, all such aspect will definitely give a person some sort of they will go away from this kind of mode if they don't get those kind of factors like in a better way. So that means it's a more safe, it is more secured, or maybe it is very much comfortable. Unless otherwise people will not really be attracted to the public transport. Now coming to the introduction of PNR, this is something not very common in Indian cities. Now when we think about PNR, which was successful in many of the countries outside, but in India the studies are very limited. So in this case, like it is some sort of, you can say, hypothesis that introduction of PNR can overcome problems of accessibility. So this accessibility can improve the access, the fast and last mile connectivity, and then people can use the public transportation for maximum of their trip length, and especially it is for those people who are already using their you can say that personal vehicles, because the focus is on choice riders. Park and ride lessens the dominance of private vehicles on road, in addition to controlling the vehicles from entering in the CBD. So the moment the CBD is the central business districts is the most populated place in any particular city, where you expect many people they're coming for business, for other reasons. Okay, so many activities are going on. So if you can stop people using their car to come to CBD, you just provide the park and ride facility where people can park their vehicle and then come to the metro and then use metro to reach CBD. So there will be a reduction of the parking requirement, parking space requirement in the CBD. PNR concept is well established in urban transportation system of Netherlands, America, Australia, UK, but it is relatively a new one to the developing country context, and especially in India. That was the gap. Understanding the gap, the objective of the study was framed like to determine the factors that are important to the choice riders for using PNR as their preferred mode of travel, and this is demonstrated with reference to the Delhi, because Delhi has uh, extensive metro network and it has certain parking space. If you just uh, if you have gone through the previous case study that I have presented under quantitative research approach, there I have also explained the advantages of like having such kind of facility, PNR facility in Delhi. Coming to the methodology, in this case also, to capture the perception of users, a questionnaire was developed, then the data was collected through a tablet. So computer assisted personal interview, CAPI method. Then after that, finally based on the collected information and after doing the analysis, uh, here we got some of the important factors. So by that findings we determine the priorities of the factors. Coming to the type of data, in this case definitely the data that we have used is a perception based data, is a qualitative data. Within that, what other information we have collected, some of the demographic details of the respondent like age, gender, monthly income, these are very standard, because many a times along with the whole data analysis, or you can say the aggregate level analysis, you also go for some sort of heterogeneity study, like how people perceive it by age or gender, etc. Importance ranking of different attributes was another component in the questionnaire, where we ask people to rate the importance of the considered factors that I'll discuss in the next slide, that how important that is towards making a call on using park and ride facility in Delhi. Along with that, also we have gathered some of the other travel behavior like travel frequency. In a week, how many times they just make travel, because many a times like who are regular, they can be like something much more interested towards park and ride, whereas probably who are making frequent travel, occasional travel, may not be that much interested. So with certain hypotheses we have captured all this information and the mode of travel, like whether it is the car or it is a two-wheeler, etc. Now if you see that in this particular case, first we have gone through extensive literature review, then we identified some factors, then based on factor frequency analysis and then some sort of initial discussion with certain expert, we finally come up with 17 factors to be included in the questionnaire. What are those? Travel time information, very important, because that is something giving some sort of clarity on the route, parking availability, what particular time I'll get the metro, because this is the case of integrating metro with the PNR. Parking information, then you have parking reservation. So do you have assured some sort of system like, okay, so I just reserve my parking and then I can go, because it may happen that you don't know whether you will get a parking free parking slot over there or not, and you just reach to the metro station and you find that there is no parking available. So parking reservation, then distance from the station matters a lot, how much you need to drive to access the station. Then about integrating in the ticketing facility some additional provisions to make this attractive, security, then underground parking, surface parking, multi-level parking. These are different predominant types of parking, and we try to understand the importance of people towards this. Then cleanliness in the PNR, frequency of metro, which is like transit attribute. Then you have the punctuality of metro. So it is much more like a reliability, seat availability. Then you have the fewer interchange, that for that you don't need to make much changes to reach to your destination. Whenever like you travel from one point to another point, always you try to find out the shortest distance. This is something like some algorithm already we have in mind, either it is like the least cost or least time taking. And also there are not much interchange, that there is no such kind of break that first you have to go like this, then you change a mode, then go up to a length, and then again you have to change. So then people will not be preferring that. And also the reduction in the time, the travel time, so time saving, and then the cost effectiveness. So with that we capture the perception of the users. In this case already I have explained that travel characteristics, socio-demographic characteristics, and the importance data towards these 17 attributes were measured. So these are all related to the parking, public transportation and services, because some of the factors if you see in this case are metro related. 5-point rating scale, least important to most important, were used as a rating, or you can say that measurement tool. Now tablet based face to face survey was conducted, collected responses at parking facilities located near major destination in the study area. So in this particular case we have picked up the major destination where you may expect people, they normally come by car or private vehicles. So we have picked up those. In this case we use a random sampling approach, so that the representation of any selected respondent is equally likely, that already we have discussed in the sampling technique presentation. So initially like 422 respondents participated, but out of that few of them they have not completed the questionnaire, or there is some sort of missing information. So we have to filter them out, and finally 403, that is 403 complete responses are used in the analysis. Now today we will learn something new to this. For such kind of rating scale data and all, we do have a reliability check. So Cronbach alpha coefficient, which you can easily get in all those statistical software like SPSS and Strata. So this is something which will assure some sort of internal consistency of the data, and also assure the consistency in the measurement scale. So for this particular case, definitely the value which we found for the Cronbach alpha was 0.886, indicating a good reliability or internal consistency of the measurement scale. So normally if you get a value close to 1 for the Cronbach alpha, it is like going for the higher consistency, and if it is below that, if it is very close to 0, so then there are problems, there is some kind of inconsistency. So there are certain ranges. So by that any value like which is above 0.7 can be acceptable, and when it is here it is almost close to 0.9, so it is a good consistency. So we got certain confidence on the measurement scale. After that, in this case we have again used the multi-criteria decision making, and in last case we have discussed about TOPSIS. So here we have used 3 such kind of MCDM technique: the grade relation analysis, Then we have the REDIT. The full form of that is relative to an identified distribution, integral transformation, and technique for order preferences by similarity to the ideal solution, Topsys. Now, why these three methods? Okay, we could easily do this analysis with one method. So, in this particular study, we thought that let us check that whether there is some sort of bias of any method which are giving some result. So, in this case, our aim was to use the same database, use three similar techniques which deal with such kind of rating data, and try to compare the findings. So, if all of them they are giving some sort of consistent ranking or consistent finding, so that means okay, so across all the methods these are like acceptable results. So, that was one motto. Second thing is that all these three methods, I also mentioned earlier, they are distribution free. So, if your data is not normal, so in those cases you can use it, and especially when a data is something like ordinal, you can also use it. The reason being using these three methods is that they are well established and they have their own benefits, like as I mentioned about distribution free. Then there is no such kind of complexity with the number of data point. With smaller sample also you can apply it, and it is very easy to formulate. Now, the rationale for this method, MCDM technique, are most commonly exercised methods which is like obtaining the preferences among the factors. So, maybe from rating to ranking, to be precise, because whenever we ask a person to give the importance in terms of rating, so for all 17 factors which were considered in this study, we got certain kind of score 1, 2, 5, 4, whatever, and after that with all this method for each attribute we get a particular value. This is either Topsy score or REDIT score or GRS score. Those values may not be same across the method, but when we make the ranking out of the final score that we obtain through all this method, and when you go for ranking or prioritizing them, there we found certain sort of similarity. I will come to that as well. So, rating to ranking, that is something that we have used here. Simple calculation along with being distribution free characteristics. So, this is already I have mentioned. It also determines the score suitable for allocation of ordered categories. So, some sort of ordinal scale can be very well analyzed with this, and then this is something like you can say some sort of unquestionable classification of preferences that we can develop. Now, this is something again in all the papers that we go for some sort of respondent profile, or you can summarize the broad findings. Say in this case we have taken gender, age, monthly income, other few parameters like qualification, occupation, travel behavior, like you have the frequency of travel, you have mode of travel, and then those are the different options that multiple choice questions were presented, and these are the number of the data that we have used and the percentage. Now, this is one way which actually we have used in the paper and which got published, but alternatively you can also use a stack bar where it represents the same thing, but in a graphical way, and this is a tabular form of it. And this is very important, like this can give some sort of idea about the sample distribution across different classifications, socio-demographic and travel characteristics. Now, coming to the findings. So, in this case definitely if you go through the paper you will find the detailed algorithm of all these three methods, their individual findings and all, but keeping in mind the time in this particular presentation or this lecture. So, I just give you the final findings out of all these three methods, and where this particular table here in this presentation is talking about the derived ranking of the 17 factors, right. all these 17 factors in GRA, REDIT and TOPSIS. So, more or less the findings is the cleanliness was most important factor, followed by security at park and ride location, because these people they observe that many are cases, especially when it is underground parking and all, so there are issues with the cleanliness. The least important attribute was the cost effective and having additional provision, because unless otherwise they have the basic amenities, so additional provision is not really, people are thinking on that direction. And cost effectiveness is something where people they prefer other factors much more than the cost, because in today's time people can give some extra, uh, you can say fare, or it can be something like tariff, the parking fees, provided that they get some sort of clean, safe, secure parking options. So for that definitely they are ready to pay little extra, and especially in this case we have to remember that here we have surveyed the choice riders where apparently their income level is higher, so that will not make sense. So I am not concluding that cost is not important factor, it is not as important as the others. So people they preferred other factors like time saving or maybe safety, cleanliness much more than the cost. Now the next thing is that when we have findings from these three methods, then how to check whether they are saying the same thing or not. Now again this exercise is similar to what we have discussed in the lecture of non-parametric test. I have shown with example of building height and the historical significance aspect, if you recall correctly. So there we have used the Spearman rank order correlationship, and in this case we have also done the same. We compare the findings of GRA and REDIT, and where we found that the value of this coefficient is 0.998, where we compare REDIT with TOPSIS it is 0.958, and when we compare it with the GRA and TOPSIS again it is 0.951. And again if you compare with that Spearman rank order table and take 1% significance level or 99% confidence level, these values are statistically significant. So that means the null hypothesis we can reject. We can reject the null hypothesis which normally mention that there is no correlation. So when you just reject this statement that there is no correlation, essentially you are accepting that there is a strong monotonic correlation among the findings, right. So that means in this case all the rankings, even if you see in some of the cases it is 8, somewhere it is 9, but overall based on this information or the state statistics which is the Spearman rank order correlationship, we can conclude that the findings across these three methods are same. There is some sort of monotonic correlation. Now strong positive correlation in ranking indicate that clear needs of the choice riders, and in this case definitely the priority is considered to be same across all the methods. This finding also assists in prioritizing the provision of services to attract maximum commuters. Now when people say that this is very important, so that means if you improve it then you may get certain sort of advantages, people may then prefer to use it. This will also help the concerned authority in decision making process to select the important factors, and whenever like you have certain limited resources and you just want to improve the most important aspect that people just give the highest priority or higher side priorities, so then you can use it. Though this particular approach demonstrated with example of Delhi Metro or Delhi So findings are case specific. Definitely this value will not be universal. If you do this study in say Hyderabad or any other part in India, you may get certain changes, but overall, like the priority and other thing will have certain results. So it is not very easy to say now whether you will get the same sort of ranking or not, but the approach demonstrated here in this study can be used for other cases with the necessary changes in the database. Now coming to the takeaway from this case study, first of all, here it is something that we have learned, the application of MCDM to determine the preferences. So from rating to ranking we can use it. Use of appropriate data collection strategy, which is here the tablet based, which actually help because that there is some advantage. The moment you enter all this data, it is already in the digital database. It's not like you collect in paper pencil and then again you enter the data again. So it will unnecessarily take long time and there might be some sort of error while you are just converting from manual to a digital form. Use of Spearman rank order correlation coefficient to compare the findings among different methods, and which is one of the important takeaway from this paper. So if you plan to do something like that, so you can use it, okay, for your study. So with that we conclude here. So here we have seen another example of qualitative approach where the perception data were captured through a questionnaire and then analyzed with certain MCDM. Three methods were used to compare the consistency among the findings and to check that we have used the Spearman rank order correlation, the relationship among these three methods: GRA, REDIT and TOPSIS. And finally what we have found in this case, that the findings across all the methods, they are saying the same thing, the prioritization is also same, and there are certain kind of case specific findings that people prefer qualitative attribute like cleanliness or safety much more than the cost. Okay, so with that I think you definitely got certain insight about the usefulness of the MCDM and the approach and how to make the perception based study. I'll come with another few set of examples, another case study where I will also show the different method that are used, not the REDIT, TOPSIS, GRA, some other method by which also you can make some kind of prioritization and which are also based on certain sort of perception data of users. So with that, I end this lecture here. So thank you for joining. We'll be meeting soon with the new case study. Thank you.